So camp's going to be starting in just a few weeks, and what I wanted to do is go over every position group in a video by video basis. So today we're going to be talking about edge defenders. We're going to go through the entire room, review the room, talk about every player in the room, kind of do it in depth, I guess, preview, or you can say review, whatever you want to say it is, of each position on the Cleveland Browns roster before we get to the start of camp. And today we're going to start with edge defender, as I said earlier. But before I get into that, I want to make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you hit that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload. All these videos will be coming out. Daily upload grind is coming. You know, it's about to be training camp season, Brown season. Get prepared. Get prepared, get locked in. Also, subscribe to my other channel, Worst Take, where I do commentaries on the national media. If that's interesting to you, links in the description below. Also, shout out to the patreon.com dog check tier members. And if you want your name to appear on the videos when I upload them, please consider joining the dog check tier on Patreon. That being said, let's get into this review, and I'm going to review this from a standpoint of their PFF grades, going from the lowest to obviously the highest. As the lower you are, you know, there's more interesting places on where these players can be placed when it comes to their roster status and all of that. But let's start with the guys who were just drafted this year. Isaiah Thomas, the 7th round pick out of Oklahoma. This is actually a guy I like a lot. Good length on him. I believe he is 6'4", about 266. So he has a nice size profile. He's a little bit older at 23. I think he's 23 or something like that. No, yeah, 23.6. So 24 coming into the season. Well, before the season for all intents and purposes. So he's an older rookie, but he is a 7th round pick. Remember, Andrew Berry has not cut any draft picks so far. So that might be something that's also important. Also, teammate of Perion Winfrey. I watched him at the Senior Bowl, and I did like what I saw out of him. It wasn't like a pop off the tape type Senior Bowl, but he did have some potential there. I do think there is some potential for him to be a situational pass rusher, for him to be on the team for about 4 years on his rookie deal. I don't know what the future is for him after that, but he will be somebody who will be interesting to look at. Number 58, Isaiah Thomas. Then you got Alex Wright, number 94, another rookie. I think he was the 3rd round pick for the Cleveland Browns. Now, this is a pick that I'm not that fond of. Again, another guy with really good size and length, 6'5", 271, coming out of UAB. He flashes a lot of power. I just worry about, his fluidity and whether that power is going to translate to the next level, as I didn't really get a good grip on what he did versus higher competition, given that he just didn't have that much tape out there. So we're going to see a lot of Alex Wright when it comes to an evaluation process during training camp to see where he might end up. But he's another guy that, I think the plan is for Alex Wright to become that opposite guy, a permanent fixture next to Myles Garrett, where with Myles Garrett, what I think the Browns have found out is instead of having a guy who's more of a stand-up linebacker, true pass rusher like an Olivier Vernon, you want to have somebody who's more flexible, right? I think the best guys that you've put next to Myles were Emmanuel Ogbah and Jadeveon Clowney, two players who are flexible, right? Inside, outside. Obviously, Clowney does it at a much higher level than Emmanuel Ogbah did, but the same principle applies, because then you can move guys around. You can let Myles be more free with how he wants to attack his pass rush sets. Also, when you have that versatility around there, it allows you to go into different fronts. You feel more comfortable doing certain things, and you just want that length on the other side of Myles Garrett, because teams are going to try to bootleg out that way. They're going to try to run that way. The more length you have there, the more strength you have in a run defense, the more you can force plays over to Myles Garrett, the more you feel like you're going to win. So there is that. Those are the two rookies. Do I expect any of these rookies to have a serious impact in year one? I would say probably not. I don't think they're going to hit the rotation that heavy. I do think Alex Wright's probably going to be out there. I think you might see Isaiah Thomas in some special team situations if he makes the team. But I think it's also I don't think it's unlikely that Isaiah Thomas and Alex Wright both make the team but aren't active on game days, right? They're not part of the active 48 or 46 or whatever they have because they have the 53 that you can carry, but then you can only have like 40-something players active. So I don't think they'll be active players. I especially don't think Isaiah Thomas is going to be active during the season. I think there's a chance that Alex Wright might not be active. They're going to make the team, obviously, but they might not be active. All right, the next guy we're going to talk about is Stephen Weatherly, who comes in with a Pro Football Focus grade of 52.5 at age 28. He's 6'5" out of Vanderbilt. Yeah, I see him as like the first guy that will let go. Now, there are some money guarantees with him that might make him a difficult cut compared to other things, but I wouldn't be surprised to see if they wanted to go younger and replace that roster spot with somebody like an Isaiah Thomas. I think that's very likely that can happen. The next guy we're going to talk about is Chase Winovichs, who comes in with a PFF grade of 55.6. Now, he was injured a lot last year. That really affected him. The year before, he put up some decent numbers. What's Chase Winovichs' role going to be in this defense? Well, if you cut on the tape and look at what they have Takk McKinley do, pretty much that role, right? Where Takk was going to be bouncing off the opposite shoulder of Jadeveon Clowney or Myles Garrett, just basically being a extra wide pass rusher, right? They're not really going to expect him to put his hand in the dirt and really do a lot of true pass rush sets. I think in an ideal world, right, you only bring in Chase Winovichs in those situational sets. So when you have Myles and Jadeveon out there, I don't think you put Chase Winovichs out there when you need to give Myles Garrett or Jadeveon a blow. I think they would much rather, again, in a perfect world, go with Alex Wright and then whoever wins out this competition between Isaac Rochelle, Isaiah Thomas, and Stephen Weatherly, right? I think they would rather go with that, have the more size there, because if you look at Chase Winovichs, 6'3", 256, you don't really want him, playing a lot of 4-eye, right? Like, you don't want him hand in the dirt trying to rush a passer that way. He's not going to be at his strength. You would rather have whoever wins that competition between those three players and Alex Wright probably out there to be the true backups to Myles whenever Myles needs a blow or whenever Jadeveon needs a blow. So, I think his role is going to be situational. Takk, I think he got almost 6 sacks last year or 5 sacks or something like that. So I would hope that Chase can get the same production. I don't know if he's as explosive on his first step as Takk McKinley is, or if the skill set is all too similar, because I don't think it is, even though I think Chase is more of an energy rusher than Takk was. No, Takk was actually a really good energy rusher. Never mind. Let me redact that statement. But similar players in some ways. I think that's the role for him. Next player is Isaac Rochelle. He spent some time over in Indiana. He is also around 27, comes in with the Pro Football Focus grade of 58.6. He's going to be in that competition, like I mentioned, right? There's going to be a competition between Curtis Weaver. Oh, yeah, Curtis Weaver, somebody I have to mention here, too. Only had 6 snaps last year. Came in with the Pro Football Focus grade of 76.3, but bruh had 6 snaps. It really don't count. If they were in the hundreds, I would be more apt to respect the snap count, but the grade. But when you got 6 snaps, it don't matter what your grade is. Curtis Weaver, I also see him as a practice squad guy, and again, he's going to factor into this competition, right? We know Jadeveon's going to be the starter on the opposite side. I don't think there's a question about who the starter is on the other side on the edge in the edge room. I don't think that's a question. But when we get to, when those guys need a blow, and we know that they'll need a blow during games, right, because they're only human, you don't want Chase Winovichs out there playing a lot of true edge. So you would have probably, again, I think they want Alex Wright to win that outright on one side. And then they want the other side, in a perfect world, to be the winner of whoever gets the spot between Isaac Rochelle, Stephen Weatherly, Isaiah Thomas, Curtis Weaver, right? Whoever gets that spot out. And I think Isaiah Thomas is probably, I would say he has a good chance to win that rollout, right? Even though that'd be 2 rookies out there on the edge. So maybe they keep a veteran. I'm surprised they don't have Joe Jackson still here. But yeah, that's probably going to be what they want to do, just so they can have the size when they have to take Myles out, so they don't become a liability on that side of the run game. So that's those guys. Now let's talk about the main 2 guys, Jadeveon Clowney comes in with a grade of 66.5. He's 29. He'll be 29 for the whole season. Doesn't turn 30 until February. 6'5", 255 out of South Carolina. Former number 1 overall pick. Had a really good year last year. I think he'll continue on that. His Pro Football Focus grades have always been like a subject of controversy with him throughout his entire career. But you know, I think it's a little bit low to what Jadeveon did. I wouldn't put it like at 80 or anything like that, but I would say he's probably a strong 70, 72 grade, in my opinion. But Pro Football Focus thinks a little bit lower of him than I do. He was not as dominant in run defense last year, so that's like something you want to see improve from last year. You want to see him. I don't know. I don't have much else that I want him to improve of other than the run defense, even though I think he was fine there. I just want him to be a little bit more dominant like we're used to seeing him be in that area, especially if the Browns are going to rely on him for a lot of run defense stops. And that might just be the defense that's affecting his grade there, right? The fact that the Browns don't have a lot of heavy guys inside, that might be something that affects his grade. So I'm not going to put that out of reality there that could be the case. But that's something to look at with Jadeveon. Other than that, if he gives you the same season and plays all the games that he did last year, you'll be absolutely 100% happy with that. No doubt in my mind. Now let's talk about the best player in this room. I don't think this is a surprise to anybody. It's Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett might be the best defensive edge rusher in football. Comes in with the number 1 grade of all edge rushers on Pro Football Focus with a 92. It's crazy good. 92 Pro Football Focus grade. Myles Garrett still only 26 years old, 6'4", 275 out of Texas A&M, number 1 overall pick in 2017. Yeah, I don't know what else I can say about Myles Garrett that has not been said already, right? Myles Garrett is really good at football. Myles Garrett is a freak. His ability to bend, dip, do all these things. He is, I think, in my opinion, he's the best player on this team. Maybe Watson can surpass him. But that's really the only player that has the opportunity to surpass him when it comes to the impact that he has on the field. And that's saying something with the team with a lot of really good impact players, right? With a guy like Nick Chubb, with a guy like Denzel Ward. But Myles Garrett just makes everything different for this defense. And having a guy like Myles Garrett, which nobody else in the NFL has a guy like Myles Garrett, allows your defense to get away with certain flaws that other defenses just flat can't get away with. I know we do a lot of stat sheet watching with Myles Garrett, and it does irritate me when people do that because I don't think you could judge the impact Myles Garrett has on the game by just looking at the stat sheet. Like, I think you actually have to watch the games to see Myles Garrett's impact because he has such a gigantic impact on plays, even when he doesn't get to the quarterback, right? Just the threat of him being there changes the protections heavily. Just the threat of him getting loose, right? Let alone when he does get close to the quarterback, all of a sudden throws are going to rush it. Like, if you want to see what a no sack but very dominant game can look like, flip on the tape of him versus Minnesota, because Kirk Cousins played awful that game, and it was strictly because 9-5 was on the other side. Well, not strictly, but it had a lot to do with why, because 9-5 was on the other side. And that's the kind of impact that he has, right? I know people get fixated on sacks, and TJ Watt is more likely to get more sacks than Myles Garrett in a given season just because he's in a different defense, right? The Pittsburgh Steelers asked TJ to go downhill more. They have more blitz sets. Like, Myles Garrett is normally put out there with 4 rushers. The fact that he's even approaching the same sack number as TJ Watt, who's usually out there with at least 5 guys on the line, right? Like, they're normally never just rushing 4. Myles is almost out there in a high percentage where he's only rushing 4 down linemen, and he's going to get doubled, sometimes triple. I mean, the Ravens triple him all the time. Like, they always have like 5 heads on Myles Garrett. So given that, like, Myles is just a tremendous player. I think he's the best player on his defense. Having a guy like Myles Garrett really allows you to do what you want to do in the back end of this defense because it just unlocks certain things. So that's the edge rusher room. What grade would I give this room? Look, at the top, I think you can do a lot worse than Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, right? I obviously think that if I were just judging this based on the top of the room, I would say an A, probably even an A plus. But since I have to factor in the whole room and the depth, I don't feel comfortable about what they have to go to when Myles or Jadeveon is out there, right? I think Alex Wright being out there, I don't know about that, right? Isaiah Thomas being the guy who's likely to be out there, I don't know about that. Isaac Rochelle, Stephen Weatherly, Curtis Weaver, I just don't feel good about any of those guys having to be out there for, let's say, even like 10% of the snaps right now. Maybe that changes in camp, but that brings this down to a B plus to me. So I'll say this edge room, B plus. All right, so that's my thoughts on the edge room. Let me know your thoughts on the edge rush room down below. You guys have a great day. Have a good night.